Hello. Good evening. Good day, good afternoon, aloha, wherever you're at around the world. Welcome back to another episode of Blue Reviews presents the Church of Ufology. Your pastor and host for this evening, Lou Jimenez. Welcome back, you guys. So glad you're here. So, the Hellish angel of Bob Lazar. So what the hell am I talking about? What the hell does that mean? I'm here for the title. I'm glad you're here for the title. That means the title works. Let me bring up what I'm talking about. Of course, let me say hello to everyone here who was here for the first stream and new member, Mr. Pat DeRusso. If you didn't see the Mandalorian review, go check it out. It was a lot of fun. Maybe best episode of the Mandalorian yet, ever. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Yep, back-to-back UFO episodes. You bet your ass. If you didn't see yesterday's episode, excuse the audio, but definitely go watch it. I hope I got the audio a little better under control today. Actually, let me move this a little closer, shall I? That's probably better. Get some water here. So, actually, before I bring this up, let me bring up this screen. Because this is where I saw this today. Go to John Greenwald. And he retweeted this today from Dean Johnson. A long but heavily sourced thread on the history and claims of Bob Lazar. There's a lot of stuff here you may not have heard about. For those that care, I recommend the read. So fuck it. I wanted to read this. I haven't had a chance today. I've been working for most of the day. I was going to edit, but I'm just really fried. And I kind of just wanted to chill and read a little bit of why we shouldn't trust Bob Lazar and why we shouldn't trust the people who push Bob Lazar or anything else they push, i.e. Jeremy Corbell, i.e. George Knapp, i.e. Liberation Times. Hashtag everyone else in this field. If anybody else is pushing these guys that you think is a trusted source, stop trusting them. They're not trustworthy. It's complete garbage. So it turns out that Bob Lazar, his first wife was someone who was 16 years older than him, which is, look, that happens, right? It's not normal, especially for being a young man. But apparently she was part of the, not apparently, she was a Hell's Angel and she murdered somebody. We're going to read about it right now. So, woman pleads guilty in murder. Let me actually do this too. You know what? I gotta stop the screen for 2 seconds, you guys. And I gotta share a different screen so I can stream some tunes while I'm doing this. You know what I'm saying? I haven't downloaded all the tunes yet on StreamYard, but I do have this pretty cool playlist here. And actually, hold on a second. Share screen, share Chrome tab. Can I select? Share tab audio. Interesting. I don't think. Damn, I want to play some tunes for you guys. But I won't be able to play tunes and show you what I'm reading. So you know what? We'll do this. I'll just have to switch it up with the songs that I have in the old playlist that I have here, which is not ideal, but hey, it's better than nothing. Okay. So then sorry guys, give me 2 seconds here. There we go. All right. So let me bring the screen back up so that way you guys can see what I'm reading. So you know I'm just not making this stuff up. Okay. So 33-year-old woman faces sentencing March 12th on her second-degree murder plea in the June 12th killing, 1974, of San Jose man, allegedly with help of the Hells Angels and his wife, Carol Nadine Eslinger, entered the plea Monday as she was scheduled for trial before Superior Court Judge James A. Wright. Additional counts of burglary, conspiracy, and false imprisonment were dismissed on motion of the district attorney's office. Miss Eslinger was charged in the shooting, stabbing death of Dennis Pissarro, 24 years old, whose bullet-riddled corpse was found in the garage of his home at 1978 Doxey Drive. A witness said Miss Eslinger arrived there with Gary Burkett of the Oakland Hells Angels and his wife, Victoria. The witness said he heard 3 shots and saw blood splatter on the wall before the Burketts returned to the room where Miss Eslinger held him at gunpoint. The witness escaped, he said, after throwing a wall plaque at his female captor. Miss Eslinger, that is a weird last name, Eslinger, was arrested 2 days later by Yuba City police, who found her and 15-year-old Yuba City. Sorry, I can't see it because of this thing here. Yuba City, boy in her Cadillac stuck in suburb sand. Police said both appeared under the influence of drugs. In the car, said police were found a quantity of powdered amphetamine and 22 caliber rifle, a shotgun, and a stereo receiver. The witness said was from Pissarro's home. And then you've got another article here: 2 imprisoned for murder. Carol Eslinger. 2 imprisoned for murder, June 16, 1976. State prison terms have been imposed on a married couple last February in Alaska for their role in the shooting and stabbing of a San Jose man 2 years ago. Gary Burkett, 35, was sentenced to Valencia facility and his wife, Victoria, 24, to the California Institute for Women at Frontera by Superior Court Judge John S. McInerney on Monday. Ms. Burkett pleaded guilty May 20th to the first-degree murder charge and her husband to a second-degree count in the June 12th, 1974 slaying of Dennis Pissarro, 24, at his home at 1978 Doxey Drive. 5 additional years were added to the Burkett's 5 to 15-year sentence because he was armed and used a deadly weapon in the crime. His wife's conviction carries a life term. Also involved in the killing was Carol Nadine Eslinger, 32. She was arrested a few days later in Yuba City and pleaded guilty to second-degree murder charge. She was sentenced to Frontera. She was sentenced to Frontera. I guess that's a prison. Miss Eslinger, according to a key witness in the case, was a visitor at Pissarro's home, entered the home with Burkett's with drawn guns, police said. While Miss Eslinger held the witness at gunpoint, he said Pissarro began grappling with Burkett. The witness said the struggle continued into another room from which he heard 3 shots and saw blood splatter on the wall. The Burketts were arrested by the Alaska State Patrol in the small community of Cantwell, where they had lived for about 18 months. Prostitution curb clears. This has nothing to do with them. Okay. So those are the 2 articles that are attached as pictures to this thread on Medium here. And so when we click the Medium thread, this is what we get. Let's see here. we get this screen. And so, yeah. Pimpin' definitely ain't easy. This seems like tweakers. Wasn't Dennis the first fake name of Lazar or his boss at Area 51? Yeah, it was. It was. That's an interesting point. I mean, yeah. I'm sure we're going to find out a lot of stuff here. I haven't read this article. But I know if Dee Johnson is sharing it, it's going to be interesting. Again, not an article, but a blog. And this is really important too. And maybe we'll go back later this week and read the first two of this series. But this is a third in a series of articles resulting from over 50 interviews conducted with people who either know or knew Bob Lazar, have had a role in his story or claims, or would have knowledge relevant to the Bob's story or claims if they are true. This article mainly explores the period prior to May 1982, when Bob and his then wife Carol moved to Los Alamos, New Mexico. Through interviews with friends, co-workers, and Carol's family members, it aims to shed light on heretofore unknown aspects of Lazar's past, including Carol's criminal history, which we just read about. In Dreamland, his autobiography, Bob recalls the process of completing paperwork for the majestic security clearance he claims was needed to work at S4. This included the task of recalling the names of individuals he had not been in contact with for years. Notably, Bob asserts that he listed on the forms his disclosed childhood friend, Alan Rothberg, among those individuals. Reference contacts on a security clearance applications are people who can speak to the applicant's character and suitability for a sensitive job. Investigators contact them to verify information and gather additional insights. On July 16, 2022, Alan Rothberg was interviewed about his experiences and memories of Bob. 2 additional follow-up interviews were conducted. The following are passages from the interviews. Grab some water. You also just change the tunes there. Turn it up a little bit. There we go. Okay. So we got author. Do you know about how old you were when you met him? I don't know. 5, 7 or something? Some pre-teen year. I mean, it's from 50 years old. Who the hell knows? Yeah, we were young. We were in, gotta think if I were in grade school or only in high school and junior high school together. I think, I gotta think, no. I gotta think we were in grade school together as well. There was an association. There was all the neighborhood kids. And back then it was the baby boom. So we had probably a dozen, if not more, kids of similar ages. Their parents were all World War II veterans. They all moved out of the Nassau County and have babies and buy houses and stuff. So we were a big pile of kids that were all about the same age. So we all knew each other at the time. And I believe that. I don't believe he came in later. I don't believe he came in later in. I believe he was there pretty much from the get-go. So probably that doesn't seem unreasonable. Let's say 10 years old or younger. I'm curious, what was Bob like? I haven't spoken to Bob probably in 10 years or more, but I've run into him a couple times over the last years before that. He's fairly much the same as he was then, I guess. He tended to be, I wouldn't say a loner. That's not a dependent, but when he delved into something, he delved deep into it. Way back in the day, basically when transistors were pretty much first at morphing into what would become computers, he basically picked up a book on transistor and transistor logic and resistor and transistor logic and basically read it cover to cover and taught himself how to do all that crap. Other than that, he was not one for standard educational goals. He wasn't into math or sciences or English, but when he found something he was interested in, he became interested in it and he dug all the way into it. So that's interesting to hear that Bob wasn't into math or science in school. He was in the weird little projects. Wasn't in the English. Not that really is relevant to his claims, but that's interesting. So author, in his book, he spends a little bit of it talking about his high school days. And he said that your dad he was a teacher at the community college in chemistry. Oh yeah, we were, Bob, myself, and another friend, all were junior lunatics. And we would do all sorts of weird chemical experiments, and we made our own fireworks. For example, things such as that, just because we could. Back then, we'd go to the library, get a book. This is how you do stuff. We got chemicals and said, oh, look, cool. We can make a bottle rocket or whatever the hell we want to decided, or whatever the hell we wanted to decided to make. Also later in life, at some point in his life, later on, he became a professional fireworks demonstrator. He worked for townships or villages or whatever the hell. When they did their fireworks display, he would be their technician, and he was licensed by the counties or states or whoever does the licensing things. So then the author asked him, you talked about how he worked for and had some involvement in a fireworks manufacturer, and that's how he got on that track. Sure. Again, it's something he got interested in. When he gets interested in something, he goes 114% into it. Author, did he ever tell you about his time out in California? Alan, I went and visited him a couple of times out there. I didn't know much about going on there, but I went to one of his weddings. We just kind of once, when I was about, 20 something like that, and we went out there and stayed with him for a couple of days like that and just had some fun there. Bob, the author asked, Bob has talked about working on music videos, things of that nature. Alan says, oh yeah, he was into video production, so CGI and anything associated with video production. I'm guessing he was dabbling in that stuff. There was little question in my mind at the time that he was involved in video production. I'd see a commercial with an animated camel going by our chocolate milk. It's the best. And I'm like, yep, Bob did that commercial. I know that one. So he would show you his copy of it? No. Author says he would just say, I did that. And Alan said, exactly. Which of course means now, of course, I question whether he actually had anything to do with it at all. He did make claims that, for example, he needed to get high-speed computers, or I should say he needed to get powerful computers. I don't want to say high speed, and at the time, the computing world was not as advanced as it is now, and that means a lot of circuitry, lots of heat. And he said that he had to get special cooling equipment, and they're approved by the local fire department just to install the stuff in the house, just so he could do the video work. Author, in Los Angeles, did he tell you he was working on films or music videos? Alan said, yeah. I think he told me he had filmed the music video. He told me he shot videos of Blondie and told me the horrible story where, well, she was shooting up heroin in the back of the film studio or in the lot or set. That was about it. He was making up stories about Blondie shooting heroin in the back. Not that Blondie didn't do drugs, but Bob Lazar shot a music video of Blondie, and she was doing heroin in the back, and he caught her. Some wild stories, dude. Did he mention any other artists? None by name, actually. None. Just that he did a photo shoot. And I, of course, extrapolated means he's done other photo shoots. Did Bob seem like he was hanging out with Hollywood people? Not to me. No, not at all. Actually, I take that back. There was one piece of evidence to the contrary. His sister was... You remember the show Battlestar Galactica, the original one? His sister actually engaged to one of the lead stars on that show, and I had actually met him. So that's verifiable. What was his name? Richard Gere, but that's not the guy's name. Richard Hatch? Yeah, I think it was Hatch. Yeah, that's the one. Now I can picture their faces. It was Hatch. On Bob's education, Alan says, I'm going to say after high school, I would say it's pretty much self-taught. As far as I know, I don't believe he ever got any formal education. I don't know if he ever went to college. I don't know that he's gotten any degrees, or he's probably has certificates because, for example, to be a fireworks demonstrator, you need probably, I believe the fire department gives you a certificate that you've taken their training course or some crap like that. But to my understanding, he doesn't have a ton of formal education. He's mostly self-taught. The author asks, when you had visited him, he wasn't going to school or anything like that? Alan says, no. The topic never came up. It was never something I thought to ask about. And he certainly wasn't like, I got to go to class, see you later, disappear for a 3-hour session. I didn't even know he had gone to any college ever. On Bob's claim of being a physicist at Los Alamos National Laboratory. So I don't believe Bob ever. Again, this is going back to formal training. I doubt significantly Bob was, as far as I know, was dyslexic. I shouldn't say dyslexic. He was a year younger than me, I believe. And so he got the phonetic spelling education that I didn't get. I got regular training for education spelling. So his reading skills were not, he had problems with it that I understand. And I never thought he ever went in for formal education for almost anything. Again, the Caltech story is a bit surprising to me, but the physics, I doubt he ever got a degree in physics. To me, that involves far more abstract math. Bob's research almost entirely practical application. When I knew him, he did stuff like, I can make this happen, so this is what I'm going to get into. But matrix manipulation for math, higher level math, or theoretical, not a chance. I shouldn't say not a chance. I just don't see it. I think that's something that would be not of interest to him because it's no real life correlate. You can't do something with it. They say, oh, look, now my videos are twice as dense, or whatever the heck they use. But again, who knows what happened after we parted ways? Author asks or says, and that's my understanding as well, that Bob was pretty talented at the practical application. Alan, oh no, he was good at that. Do not kid yourself. He was building back in the day when Pong was the first computer game, if you will, or video game, not even a computer game out there. Bob was already delving into building computer circuits. Admittedly, not complicated because the hardware simply did not exist at that point, and you couldn't, but he was already playing around with stuff like that. And so when it became something that was of interesting, something he could do something with, he would do it, and he would do it very well. I do not doubt he was gifted in terms of practical applications. I don't want to shoot down, but it's just, I don't see, to me, I mean, we're talking something that 30 years ago where I was not in close contact, though I might be dead wrong, but to me, that's not the Bob I knew. I did not see him sitting down and reading an abstract text on physics and going, yep, I got this, and learning the math, taking 3 years of calculus and a lifetime of linear algebra and the background material just to be able to comprehend the stuff that's in modern physics text. I don't see it. Doesn't mean he didn't do it, but to me, it's just like that would be outside of my ken. But in 30 years, anything could happen. A Bob's jet engine powered bike and car, Alan says he's done a couple of times. He's done that a couple of times. He's built a rocket bike. He put a propane jet engine on the back of one of his cars. Absolutely. He was big into that. He really liked that. I believe he actually raced those things. I don't know if professionally, but he certainly raced his jet bike. I've seen the jet car. I've only seen a picture of, but oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But we're not talking special science stuff. The stuff that you basically could literally, he quite literally got this out of the back of a Mechanics Illustrated magazine. He may have enhanced it, but that's what he basically did. He said, oh, cool, jet engine, got the stuff, welded it to the bike, and there you go. But it was not something he developed. Theoretically, it's something he basically found a practical application for. he may have never he may have made it better, but no, this stuff that was out there back in the 80s, I guess it wouldn't have been 70s. No, even 70s, I would say. Author says, was that the same kind of engine that he'd put into his Honda? My expectation is it was probably a larger, more refined version, but probably a similar basis. I would suspect propane was the way he was going. I don't know what other fuel he could really use that was legally attainable besides propane. Yeah, he certainly wouldn't do a gas or diesel. It just doesn't have the energy potential to do it. So propane would probably be it. That would be my assumption from the picture. So I did a video at some point. God knows when or where, and certainly looked like a propane fuel engine to me from what I saw from the exhaust. It's possible he refined existing designs and patterns or claimed as his own the refined designs. That certainly wouldn't be surprising, but I believe his first introduction to this again was just getting the kit from the back of a Mechanics Illustrated magazine, and that was it. Again, he may have taken it further. I couldn't say at that point. And this is someone who's known Bob Lazar since he was maybe 7 years old, at latest 10. Preteen years. And knew him through high school, post-college, visited him in Los Angeles, and is like, no way. Could not see Bob doing any sort of theoretical physics whatsoever. And the story, just that story of Blondie, huge red flag. It's interesting that his wife or his sister, her husband is, did they say Richard Hatch? I thought it was Richard Gere. Let me see here. Here we go. Richard Hatch. Let me IMDb Richard Hatch. Oh, I know Richard Hatch. Okay. I don't know him. You know the face when you see him. This guy. He's loosely related to Bob Lazar. Interesting. That's pretty wild. But that's the only verifiable thing. And I mean, he's dead. Also, he's dead. So was. Rest in peace. It's interesting. Just that Blondie story, though, man. That's such a red flag. Like, I don't believe it. I just can't picture it. I can't picture Bob Lazar being in a place where Blondie was shooting heroin on the set of a music video. It doesn't make no sense on any sort of level. Even in the 80s, Blondie on music videos had publicists and managers and other band members and friends, I'm sure, on set and in the music video. I just can't imagine everyone on set was like, oh yeah, we're cool with Blondie doing heroin on set. So wild, man. And just this idea that, you know, he's never had any, he didn't go to college, according to his buddy, his friend. And he wasn't even interested in science. He would just focus, he would get super hyper focused on one or like rockets or like you said, computing, like the Pong and the transistors in computers. Like, this guy wasn't doing anything complex, and the rockets that he was building were on the back of Mechanics Illustrated magazine. Like, he was just getting the kits from there and refined them and made cool bikes out of them. And you're like, oh my God, how did you do this? It's like, yeah, dude. I mean, for example, this painting I did of Bill Murray, okay? You know how I did this? I watched the movie Exit Through the Gift Shop. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but Exit Through the Gift Shop is a film about a documentary filmmaker who just ended up being a crazy guy who documents everything in his life, even before he met Banksy. He somehow meets Banksy and ends up documenting and following Banksy for almost a decade, filming Banksy and his process and how he makes his art. And telling him the whole time he's filming, I'm going to make this amazing documentary. It's going to be amazing. And Mr. Big, blah, 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 blah. The whole time he's just learning how to do what Banksy does. And it's stencil art. It's this stuff. And they should literally show you the process of what Banksy does in this movie. And I'm like, oh, I could do that. And that's exactly what the filmmaker did too. He never ended up editing a film. And he just basically ripped off Banksy, became Mr. Brainwash, and now does art for some of the biggest artists in the world. Totally just stole what Banksy was doing and started making his own shit. And it's great. It looks awesome. And the whole movie's about like, well, what is stealing, you know? And what is your own creation? And it's like, that's what Bob Lazar does, man. He's the creepy filmmaker that just kind of steals shit and then pawns it off as his own, story. I'm sure he probably heard from one of his other buddies who also shot music videos that Blondie did heroin on set. And so then he took that story and was like, oh, it's my story. Like, and it was probably just like the game of telephone. By the time it reached Bob, it was probably exaggerated greatly. That's just my guess. But it's just like, dude, it's, and again, this is only one person. They interviewed over 50 people to get a good idea and scope. And I mean, this is an interview from somebody who's looking into him for a job. And this is the stuff that you hear. I wonder if he got the job. Because it seems like by the author, by the guy who's asking the questions, it doesn't seem that way. Unless I got that part of it wrong. Luis, have you been influenced by Matthew Ryan? A drug dealer living on marijuana makes you unreasonably paranoid and unable to see reason. His silence is obviously sad. Saw it happening. What? That's the weirdest comment I've read today. No, I wouldn't say he influences me, but yeah, he's a good buddy of the show. Another question, though, Lou. Why? Why do you think Bob would come out and say all of this, then continue the story after all the heat? Just wondering your thoughts. I mean, dude, let's go to his website, shall we? He hawks wares. United Nuclear. And I've shown this website before on UCR, old UCR. Oh, it looks like they updated it a little bit. It doesn't look like a website that the CIA made. It still looks pretty bad, but way better than it looked before. But this is Bob Lazar's fucking website, dude. Look at this. Second thing on the buy now. Glow-in-the-dark toxic paint. Uranium ore for sale. Like, just unique collectibles. Area 51. Please see terms. God. You know what? No, I'm just kind of curious. What are the terms, man? What are the terms? I guess it just depends on what you buy. Generic uranium ore, radiation range A, 1,000 to 3,000 CPM, typical generic uranium ore samples. Generic uranium ore samples in the safe 1,000 to 3,000 CPM radiation range, ideal for beginning mineral collectors or as an inexpensive radiation source. Our generic samples is typically plain. Anyway, man, the guy's selling wares. That's why. Because there's always wares to sell. And like, let's take a look at the UFO wares that he's selling. Where is shop now? So here's why, dude. Right here. This is why. $39 book that probably cost them $6 to make per copy. This is why. And how long they've been selling this book. When was this book published? Bob Lazar, or Dreamland, Bob Lazar autobiography. A Bob Lazar autobiography is the reason Area 51 became known as to the general public in his Dreamland autobiography. Lazar reveals every detail of his highly controversial story about being an insider within the world's most legendary research. And yet he never fucking went to college. You want to know why? You're wondering why. Screaming at the top of your lungs, why? Why would they fake this? He was on fucking Joe Rogan. How many fucking samples of this bullshit ore has he sold? Or these fucking shirts? Or these signs, these Area 51 signs for fucking $25. Or a Bob Lazar movie poster for $50. You want to know why? Got 115? I know Bob doesn't. If he did, he wouldn't be putting it on a fucking t-shirt. Lab equipment. There was something I said terms. Like please see terms before purchasing. What does that mean? Anyway, that's that. So not a Bob Lazar believer, but if I was just but if it was an all-out just cash grab, don't you think it's odd that he refused interviews for 25 years? No. And he didn't refuse interviews for 25 years. He did many. You know what? Let's check out Bob Lazar's IMDb. (1987 to 2010). He's got 22 appearances. Look at this, dude. TV movie where he plays him. Well, that can't be him. Okay, the Lazar tape and excerpts from the government Bible. He was the host of it, 1991. Unsolved Mystery, plays himself, 1994. Sightings, self-engineer. He plays himself, an engineer, former aerospace engineer, self-scientist, and witness. So he's got 3 roles, 3 episodes from 91 to 1995. Okay, so that's not like a back-to-back-to-back episode. That's like one here, one there, one here, where he's playing different parts. And trust me when I tell you, he's getting paid for these, okay? UFO Diaries, 1995. Secrets of the Black World, 1995. Future Fantastic, 1996. Dreamland, Area 51, 1996. 97, 97, 98. MUFON. I guess we can't count that. 97, the Paranormal World. TV series Galileo. In 2002. So you say he's been silent for 25 years. He's talked every fucking year ever since he's told this story. You just don't realize it because it's not on CNN. It's not on, because nobody believes this fucking guy. Nobody believes this guy. It wasn't until 2019, 2018 where he started getting some serious, like, people looking at his story again, because people forgot in the 20 years of all of this terrible television and bullshit selling and hawking of wares, we get into this moment here where everybody forgets about all of this garbage. It happened. It happened, okay? It's real. There are paychecks. There's a paper trail. People got paid for this shit. And continue. Look at this. He's got 2 upcoming projects: Extraordinary Beliefs, Self, Former Government Scientist, TV series, Self, Interviewee, Storm Area 51. I wonder who is producing this piece of shit. I don't have IMDb Pro. Now I kind of feel like I need to get it. You know what? Let's just go ahead and IMDb the other schmo. How you spell his name right? See what projects this guy's got coming up. 7 upcoming projects. There you go. Storm Area 51. He made a movie. You want to know how fucking embarrassing Storm Area 51 is? Go read the Rolling Stone article about Jeremy Corbell. What a joke that was. Truth Embargo in production. Immaculate Deception in production. Moonwalker in post-production. Looking Up post-production. Indelible post-production in production. Extraordinary Beliefs TV series in production. You want to know why? You want to know why? Oh, if this was just a cash grab, I ain't been for 25 years. Where we've been. This is where we've been. This is where we've been. I love that he's a director and producer and cinematographer on only 14 of the 15 projects. Fucking hilarious, man. This guy, the way he has refined selling this bullshit. He is the Roger Stone, right? That's the guy's name? Is it Roger Stone? He is the Roger Stone of ufology. Like, yeah. Much rather be infamous than famous. And in a very cunning and deceiving sort of way. Like, unreal, man. But you know what I think? I know this shit's gonna come to an end. He's gonna trip up. He's gonna fuck up somewhere really badly. And this shit's gonna come to a halt, I believe. But we'll see. Thanks. Appreciate it. I'm myself, but I play one on TV. Cunning linguist. Hey, what's up, Jeremy? Look up Bob Lazar on IMDb. Not true that he didn't give interviews for 25 years. It's just not. It's not. And again, this is only, like, fuck, guys. We only read one of And I don't even think we finished with that guy, with Alan. Let's read some more, shall we? I like this. Change the tune again. Let me go to this one. Let's see what this one's all about. There we go. Yeah. All right. The Baghdad Phantom. You're gonna believe the guy who's pushing this bullshit? You're gonna believe him on the credibility of the Baghdad Phantom when he's been pushing this guy? All right. I mean, if you want to do that, that's cool. Just know it's all BS. Carol Lazar pictured with the Honda jet car at the McGee Park Fairgrounds in Farmington, New Mexico. Image courtesy of Susan Hack. Okay, so Bob Lazar appears to have the Gluharif jet engine designs available for purchase on United Nuclear website, including the art from the Mechanics Illustrated cover in the copy. He asserts that he plans to include his own modifications. We totally missed the jet car design. Oh, look at this piece of shit. You can't, it doesn't get bigger than this. Look at this. I hate that I can't. Let me see. Why can't I just? Let me do. Yeah, right. Screen one. Yeah. Okay. It's like, what the hell am I doing? What's going on here? Look at this. This is as big as it gets. The only way to view this is if you oh wait, you gotta zoom in. This is so ridiculous, this fucking website, dude. Look at this. Look at this piece of shit. You can't even see this, and he's charging $39 for it. J130 jet engine plans. Jet engine plans that he stole from the back of a magazine cover. They're not even his plans. This guy is a scam artist, people. How many different ways can we say it? Here. You know what? How does that look? That's better. See if we can get a little closer for you guys. Or if this will... No, that doesn't work. There's got to be a way where I can do it with my mouse. Anyway, I don't have a trackpad on my thingy here, but anyway. So this way you guys can see it. All right. So yeah. So the original engine and designs were produced by a close friend of Bob Lazar. Oh, okay. Sorry. They didn't get it off the back of a magazine. He stole it from his friend. Were produced by a close friend of Bob Lazar's, Eugene Gulharif. Until his death, Eugene built and sold his engine for decades and met Bob in the late 1970s. Bob occasionally worked with Eugene building engines and also sold plans with some minor modifications he incorporated for go-kart and small vehicle use at car shows and race events. These plans incorporated the performance changes Bob made back then, and the engines actually put out about 15% more thrust than advertised. And that comes from UnitedNuclear.com on Lazar's Los Alamos Photoshop. Author, I know that he lived in Los Alamos for a certain period of time and he had ran a photo shop there. Alan, really? A photo? You mean literally a place that develops pictures? That seems awfully way too mundane for something for him to do. But if he did, he did. That to me is the most striking statement you've made in the entire conversation. That to me is just so utterly mundane. It's something that I would think would have no appeal for him whatsoever. But he did? Okay. That to me is startling. Okay. Like, I love that it's the actual like the phonetics, the way this is written is the actual quotes of the way people are saying it, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious. On any contact by investigators working on Bob's majestic security clearance, authored. For the security clearance process, they'll have you provide a list of contacts. Alan, kind of like a job reference, except it's now a security classifications, etc. Author, yes. So my question would be, Alan, no is the answer before you even ask it. Nobody ever contacted me for a clearance for Bob. Not that I remember. Oh, man. Holy shit, dude. Like, holy shit, dude. In 1976, Bob Lazar relocated with his parents to California and enrolled at Pierce Junior College, a public community college located in Woodland Hills around the same time. He began working at Fairchild's Incom, a manufacturer of equipment used to test bubble memory devices, a new kind of computer memory that was being developed at the time. Two of Bob's former co-workers were interviewed about their recollections of him. Gary Frostberg and another who asked to be identified only by his first name and last initial, Peter G. Interview with former Fairchild employee Gary Frostberg. Author, you were a co-worker of his, Bob Lazar, at Fairchild, is that right? Gary Frostberg, correct. The company originally was Zincom, and then it got bought up by Fairchild. Some of the stories, he'd bring in his little Honda car to the parking lot, and at lunchtime we'd get him to fire it up, this little submarine-looking powered device that he could power up and shoot out a beam out of the pull of a lever. And his license plate would open up and out. This beam would just shoot out the back end, this flame. The thing only weighed like 60 pounds and pumped out like 6,000 pounds of thrust. So then he was still there. And then from there, he went to Los Alamos and we stayed in touch. And that's where he took that little Honda car, and he got sponsorship from a shock absorber company, a big shock absorber company, so that he could go 200 miles an hour in his jet car. So back in Simi Valley, when we were at Fairchild, he would test track this freeway that he hadn't opened yet, and his buddy would drive Bob's hydrogen Trans Am and then follow him and take videos as if he was trying to go faster and faster, this little Honda jet car. That is fucking nuts, dude. This guy was fucking crazy. He took a jet car down a fucking freeway that was closed. Like, what? And he would film it. That's like, that to me is ahead of its time. Like, them filming, like, I just picture Lazar filming that Uzi, shooting it in the desert. Like, dude, these guys were filming and doing shit. I feel like they were Instagramming, like documenting in the same way that we do today, way before anybody else was doing it. It's funny, man. It's really funny. Yeah, so then he went to Los Alamos, and from there he was working on laser technology at the time, but he got the clearance for President Reagan to go to Los Alamos. That is the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard. Did you work directly with Bob? No, my wife did. because again, she was a secretary for the department as a manufacturing engineer. He had brought a transcript. He brought a transcript from Nikola Tesla at that point because his engine he sold to Borg Warner so that they could launch drones and shoot them down because of the amount of thrust that this little baby rocket would put out. That's interesting that drones came up. Fuck, dude, what is this? This is before 82, right? According to the top of this, the sort of the preamble of this article here. That was just interesting. Author, did Bob ever talk about going to Pierce College? Gary, which I went to also. Author, did you hear about that? Gary, no, that was a little junior college in the San Fernando Valley. I went to that also, but I went. Sure, I'm sure he went because he was studying lots of stuff. He brought a unintelligible manuscript from Nikola Tesla. I mean, that's how advanced he was in his thinking process. I mean, he's 15 years old and put a little jet engine on his old Stingray bicycle, and that's pretty impressive. Author, do you know how Bob ended up at Los Alamos? Did they seek him out? What was the hiring process like, or did he tell you about it, how he ended up there? Gary, well, I don't know how they got a word about his abilities. Yeah, well, I don't know how they got a word about his abilities, but it must have been through his when he sold the rights to his jet engine to Borg Warner so that they could test drones. Because now these drones could go a lot farther and faster with his technology because they were so much lighter weight compared to the ones that they had been using. So from that, again, to get the Reagan Z clearance, I think it was called, they hired him to take over the rechargeable laser for defense purposes. What is this? One thing that I've heard a lot of people mention is that Bob had been working on music videos for various artists when he was in Los Angeles. Gary, yeah, that's when him and his best friend would forge a press pass. They would forge a press pass and throw a bunch of cameras around their neck, and they would crash the concerts. What a fucking maniac. That's kind of cool, actually. That's actually pretty cool. Did he tell you at all about working on a music video for Blondie or had some kind of role in it? I don't remember a music video. I don't remember it. But if he said it, it's true. Okay, so Gary believes everything that Bob is saying. Bob was he had nothing to hide, and he talked from his heart, and everything he said was true. Because then I'd see all this stuff on TV, and it's like, yeah, right. They didn't know him, and that's why he'd come out, because he was afraid for his life. So he had to come out because the bad guys were after him to discredit him. The feds and their secrecy and stuff like that just created situations where it was safer for him to come out and say the stuff where he knew that most of the people wouldn't believe him. But he just had to do that so that the feds would back off as far as trying to unintelligible him out. A follow-up interview was conducted sometime later. Okay, so this was, just get back here. Former Fairchild employee in 1976. So from 1976 to before 82, he worked with his wife. Clearly, he told him a bunch of fucking stories. Okay, so a follow-up interview was conducted sometime later. Author, do you remember the time period? I know you had said that this was around 1981, but my understanding is that Bob started working at Fairchild in 1976 and then left in 1982. Gary, yeah. I started there in 78 and left in like 84. Okay, was he working there when you started working there? Yeah. And is there a story around the sale of the jet technology to Borg Warner, or how did you end up hearing about that? I think it was from him during lunchtime that he had sold that technology. It was able to launch drones. Yeah, that we would shoot down So that was probably, well, we moved from one building to the next around 81 to another building, and then he was still there at the time. And then he left that, and he got clearance from Ronald Reagan, Z clearance. I think it was top secret clearance to go to Los Alamos. Author. And did you hear about that at a time that he was moving out there? Just before. Author. I want to be sure of the time period. There was his work at Los Alamos, and then there was his work at S4, and you're referring to the Los Alamos. So when he left California and moved to Los Alamos, that's when he got his clearance, because he was going to be working on some high-tech stuff. So this is when he was moving to Los Alamos, correct? Did he tell you what type of project he was going to be working on out there? Well, I don't know if I should say what it was. Is there maybe a general description you could give? Yeah, it was laser technology. Oh, Gary is hilarious, man. This is a script. Like, man, I want to write a Bob Lazar script. I really do. I think there's so much you could do with this guy. He is the most delicious kind of con artist, because he's a fucking wild man. Like, and he does whatever he wants. Whether it's opening a brothel, whether it's making fake forging press passes, whether it's convincing the world that he touched alien fucking technology. Like, this guy does not give a fuck. He loves to just fucking tell stories and get people to just believe he's something that he's not. It's absolutely wild to me. Absolutely wild. How like, can you give me a general description? Yeah, it was laser technology. Like, okay, there it is. Like, shit, dude. Okay, so Peter G. Interview with former Fairchild employee Peter G. Get a little more water here. Let me see what you guys are saying. And there's 56 of you guys here. Thank you so much for being here. By the way, check out our reviews of The Mandalorian. Check out our reviews, our live game streams. Links to the StreamYard, or it's not to StreamYard, to Twitch, are in the description below. If you guys want to put some tips in the tip jars, there's plenty of tip jars as well. So thank you guys for being here. Let us not forget the brothel. Wait, I think he just did the security cams for it. I don't think he ran it. No, he not only. You got to read the deposition from the judge in the court when he was arrested for this brothel. He not only paid for the two. It was an apartment complex, and he bought two apartments right next door to each other that had a door connecting the two of them. It's like a hotel in a way. And he set up the security cam systems. He hired the women. He set the schedules, and he collected money. It sounds like a fucking pimp to me. Sounds like a fucking pimp to me. I'm pretty sure, I mean, I know the United States federal government has some questionable people running all rampant through it. I'm pretty sure they don't hire fucking pimps. Pretty sure they don't hire pimps. But, maybe I'm wrong on that. Could be way off on that one. This guy is sketchy, without a doubt. Weaponize your parents' money is what them both share. Prostitution is legal in Nevada, but you have to have a license to do it, and you can't do it out of a fucking apartment complex. That's why he got arrested. Ay. Smash that like button, guys. Hit that follow button if you haven't already. Trans scam. Great show, but I gotta go. Good night, everyone. Good night. Intergalactic Overhaul. Thank you for being here. It's just absolutely wild. Anyway, let's continue. All right, so Peter G. So it's a little bit hazy. But 81, 82-ish. Fairchild used to be in Canoga Park. I left the company before they moved to Simi Valley, about 6 months before they moved to Simi Valley. I only worked for Fairchild a little bit over a year. On Carol and Bob in the jet car. Author. Do you know how they met by chance? Peter, here's the deal. At the time, okay, I'm 65 now. You work the math. He was younger than I believe, and everyone thought it was really weird that he was with a woman that appeared to be in her mid-40s. Everyone was like, what? But they were very quiet onto themselves. They always arrived to work and, they rode to work together. And Bob was never a social guy. I mean, he might have been on the spectrum, but you kind of stayed away from him. It's like, if you get into rudimentary chit chat, and that's about as far as you're going to go. Okay. They used to ride to work together in a brown Camaro, and that's set on the side of it. And that set on the side of it ran on hydrogen. Never had any proof it did or not. That's just what it said on the side of the car. And it's interesting to say, like, this guy, he's definitely didn't seem very social. A couple people have said that. But when he is social, or the people he is social with, he tells absolutely amazing lies to. That's pretty wild. One day, he did show up with I thought it was a yellow, like a smaller size Japanese car, kind of like a hatchback, in which he had a jet engine. I mean, the rocket engine. And I saw that being demoed in the parking lot. All right. And just like Batman, the rear license plate was cut in half. It was spring-loaded on hinges, and that would pop open. There was a nozzle, and that thing was so goddamn loud you couldn't hear yourself think, okay? He fired it off once during a lunch break in the parking lot at work, all right? And now he told me, so I have no reason to, I haven't verified this, that if he was running, he used to run it on the Simi Valley Freeway, the 118, which was absolutely stupid because that's where they put all the rookie CHP, California Highway Patrol, that were kind of ticket happy, right? And he told me that night that he would run it when there's hardly any people out there. And if he's going to the speed limit with gas engine, he'd pop that thing in. Within a second, he was doing 120. I never verified that, okay? All I know is I did see it. He said he built it, and I did see it running. On Bob's work at Fairchild and his education, he was a test technician. I was a senior quality assurance engineer. My whole shtick was incoming parts as they came into the factory, as was Fosberg. Okay, Bob was a technician. We were engineers, so there was we would deal with the test engineers more than the technicians, all right? His his wife was a rework person. So here's the deal. You're building this board. It's a, print circuit board with parts in it. They take the test. Well, it fails. It goes to Lazar. He looks at it and goes, oh yeah, well, that part is in backwards. He flags all of this shit. Carol would get it, change the parts so they were right, all right? You don't need to know what I was doing. It's totally irrelevant to the story, okay? And he's just taking night classes at Pierce College at the time. I remember him talking about that. So now I have two things for you to think about. One, would it be possible for a person to go from night class at Pierce College, which was in the food chain of community colleges in LA? It is the lowest row, okay? I mean, they used to call it the high school with asterisks, all right? I mean, there's other schools in the area. Santa Monica College, Los Angeles City College. These are really good schools, okay? Pierce was not a good school as far as academics. Would it be possible for him to get Caltech and MIT or Stanford, whatever he says, to 2 degrees in that time period of time? I would say no. That's impossible. Okay, so the bottom line, I believe he's lying about his education. I will ask you to think about it. One more thing that I have an absolutely uninformed opinion on. I would assume that if we had captured technology from another planet, would it be fair to say that that would be the highest level of top secret there is, right? Why would they let a contract employee even anywhere near there? It makes no sense. I would assume at that level you'd have to have bars and stars on your lapel to get anywhere near that shit, okay? I mean, our government doesn't work that way, all right? I mean, listen, I was a job shopper before I took full-time jobs, and there was a thing called Q clearance, but it wasn't looking at alien technology. It was, are you able to look at blueprints that go into missiles, okay? It just doesn't, I don't know, man, but that's speculation, and I reserve the right to be completely wrong. Aliases. This is just, that is amazing. Wait, before I get into alien, that is amazing. That is just a fucking amazing line. And he was taking night classes at Pierce College at the time. Remember, I'm talking about that. So now I have 2 things for you to think about. One, would it be possible for a person to go from night classes at Pierce College, which was in the food chain of community colleges in LA? It was the lowest row, okay? I mean, they used to call it high school with asterisks, all right? I mean, there's other schools in the area. Santa Monica College, Los Angeles City College. These are really good schools, okay? Pierce was not a good school as far as academics. So when George Knapp talked to these people, if he talked to these people, how the fuck do you not walk away from statements like that and go, this guy's full of shit? Especially not being able to find his pictures, you know, in any yearbook or any of the college transcripts that he should have. Can't find any of those fucking things. And then you hear stories like this. You gotta be kidding me, dude. That is fucking hilarious. That is I mean, this is so fucking funny, man. I mean, it's literally writing itself. It is literally writing itself. Complicier, thank you so much for the 333 donation. Love your new style, brother. Fight for the realness. I will fight for the realness. Officially. I want to see proof that he was shot at. You're never going to see that proof, man. TD Barnes explains how they hired the teams at Area 51. They took a bunch of military guys around the same age with similar interests, and they brought out the entire neighborhoods for them. They would live and vacation together, all the guys who worked there. That's how they socially engineered the teams. Every 10 years, they would bring in a new team. That's interesting. Oh, hey, this is a guy that wrote it. Or I don't know, you wrote this, you shared this information. Thank you, Signal Intelligence, for this. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. This is hilarious. This is fucking hilarious. Like, this is so funny, dude. Like, how does anyone trust George Knapp? How can you trust George Knapp? I mean, that's a legitimate question, you guys. That's a legitimate question. How does George Knapp, being the investigative journalist he is, not at least hit if there's 50 interviews in here saying he hit it, I don't know, 5% of them, you would come out to the conclusion that this guy's full of shit. This is wild. Aliases. Bob Lazar and his first wife, Carol, married on July 27, 1980, according to Carol's family. They met while working together at Fairchild. Let me share this. I appreciate you, Signals Intelligence and alien scientists, and all you guys out there that have been saying this shit for years. You know, I just like I explained to Jeremy when we had our conversations a couple years back, and I did the first big phone home, and and Corbell was freaking out that Jeremy Reese was going to be on the big phone home, and he was also going to be on the big phone home, and he didn't want to be anything associated, blah, 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 all these fucking things. Made me jump through all these fucking dumb hoops. It was such a simple fix. But the way he just like freaked out about it, it was so wild to me. And I told Jeremy at the time, Reese, that is, I was just like, look, I understand your issues with him, but I gotta see it. Like, I gotta give him the opportunity, just like I'm giving you the opportunity to show me who your real stripes. To show me who you really are, right? And here we are 2 years later, and without a doubt, Jeremy Reese has come out shining on who's being a real motherfucker. Who's being real? Who's being real? Who's being a real motherfucker? Like, who's being genuine? And I can tell you without a doubt that Jeremy Corbell, after the first big phone home, I remember the last conversation, the very last thing I said to him, because he called me after the big phone home and we talked on the phone. And this is when he was telling me, man, we're going to get you on Coast to Coast AM. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened in the history of this field, man. In 20 years, people are going to look up back on this and they're going to go, oh my God, man, this is where it all started. And he's like, we're going to get you on Coast to Coast. And he's like, and I'm going to come on your show, man, and you can ask me whatever you want. And I was like, dude, I would love for that to happen. And I started laughing to myself, and I got to be honest with you, knowing some of the questions and the things that Jeremy Reese had brought up to me and a couple of his other friends had brought up to me and things that I had seen myself, I responded with, yeah, I've got some questions for you, my friend. Trust me. I do. I've got some questions for you. Basically intimating like, yeah, I want to ask you about shit like this. Never contacted me ever again after that conversation. True story. True story. Never contacted me after that conversation, and I never got to go on Coast to Coast AM. Which I was actually like, that was the only time in this whole experience where I was like, holy shit, man, I might get to be able to go on Coast to Coast AM. That would be insane. Like, that would be insane that I kind of grew up listening to the show and I might be on it and not having planned to ever be on it, just genuinely getting on there for something I did. That was really wild to me 2 years ago, and I'm happy I never got on the show. I'm glad it never happened. I'm glad that I said what I said to him because it scared him off, and it showed me who he really was. Showed me who the real motherfucker was. Showed me who he really was, you know, and how scared he is of real questions. He doesn't want real questions. And that's evident by what he did to Stephen Greenstreet at Alien Con. I mean, like, Greenstreet had to pay for you to answer one question. You're such a hack, dude. Such a hack. You're such a hack, man. All right. The name of the bride given on Corbell and Carol's 1980 marriage license certificate was Carol Nadine Strong. Aside from the marriage certificate, no additional public records could be located for Carol Nadine Strong. Birth date, March 21st, 1946. Asher. After Carol's death on April 21st, 1986. Damn, that's 1 month away from her birthday. That's such a... Wow. The certificate of death was issued and listed a different birthday for Carol, March 21st, 1942, as well as a different surname for her father, Harold Asher. A record matching this information was located in the California Birth Index. Named Carol Nadine Asher, March 21st, 1942, female. Maiden name Jones, birth county, San Francisco. A copy of Carol's birth certificate was later provided by her family. No additional public records were located. Eslinger. The presentence investigation report provided to the Clark County District Court during the course of Bob Lazar's 1990s pandering case listed a third surname for Carol. A pre-sentence. That's what that is. Should that have a dash there? Am I wrong? Should that have a little spacer there? Oh, maybe I'm wrong. The pre-sentence investigation report is a document that provides judges with information about defendants' background, character, and circumstances in order to inform their sentencing decisions. The report is typically compiled by probation officers and includes information such as the defendant's criminal history, education, employment history, and family background. The goal of the report is to provide the judge with a comprehensive understanding of the defendant's life and ensure that the sentence imposed is fair. During the pre-sentence investigation, Bob was interviewed and questioned about his marital history. He provided the investigator with the name Carol Eslinger. Carol Eslinger, deceased 1980 to 1986, widower, no children. The sole public record located under this name is a 1970 San Jose, California city directory listing for Fred and Carol Eslinger. Carol's daughter explained the origin of Eslinger's name. She did not have a boyfriend named Freddie Bangert. Freddie Bangert and Carol Asher both used aliases. The Eslinger name came from Freddie's aunt, and so they both used that name for a while. An extensive search of archived newspapers articles revealed more information about Carol's past and a likely reason for the use of an alias and false birth date on the 1980 marriage certificate. And then boom, here you go. So she lied about her fucking identity. I'm curious to know if she lied to Lazar about it. Wonder, can you tell me, signal intelligence, if Bob knew that she was a Hell's Angel before he married her? I would think, unless she was really trying to separate herself from this history, which we read earlier. On June 12th, 1974, Carol Nadine Eslinger and two associates, Gary Burkett, and a member of the Oakland chapter of the Hells Angels motorcycle gang, and his wife, Victoria, entered the home of Dennis Pisario. Dennis. It's interesting. The guy who died is the boss of Bob Lazar that gave him a hard time. It's an interesting name. Mr. Pisario and Miss Burkett had allegedly gotten into a violent argument weeks prior. According to the testimony presented in court, the three individuals armed with pistols entered the house. Carol held the guests of Pisario's Eugene's Day at gunpoint in an adjacent room, while the other two stabbed and shot Mr. Pisario to death. Jesus Christ, dude. Bob Lazar married a fucking killer. There's two, I mean, god damn, dude. The most delicious con artist of all time. Like, he's been married how many times? 3 times? One was a Hell's Angel. One died, right? Or did 2 die? Or is this the one that died? He's just a maniac. Day heard the sound of gunfire and saw blood splatter after Pisario had been killed. The attackers handcuffed Day to a shelf bracket and handed him a syringe, which he was told contained a solution that would incapacitate him. The attackers ordered Day to inject himself with the solution so they could escape. Day, however, managed to inject only a small amount, squirting the rest of the solution onto the floor. The arm that was injected later required surgery to repair the damage of the caustic solution had caused. That's fucking sick. At some point, Day was able to throw a wall plaque at Carol and escape to a neighbor's house where he contacted authorities. On the evening of June 13, 1974, the day after Pisario's murder, a routine tow truck call led to Carol's second arrest. Carol and a 15-year-old boy had become stuck in a riverbed mud in her car and required a tow truck to pull them out. A tow truck arrived and the car was towed to a nearby shop for repairs. However, when the tow truck driver arrived at the shop, Carol and the boy had fallen asleep in the truck. Suspecting that something was amiss, the truck driver called the police. Upon their arrival, the police officers awakened Carol and the boy and they conducted a search of the car. During the search, they discovered amphetamine powder and tablets as well as stolen goods. Both were promptly arrested and charged with possession of dangerous drugs and possession of property with altered serial numbers. Sentencing, July 18, 1974, Carol was arrested for her involvement in Pisario's death and was charged with second-degree murder, conspiracy, and false imprisonment. Unreal, dude. Just unreal. After an initial not guilty plea, she eventually pleaded guilty to the second-degree murder charge. On March 12th, 1975, Carol was sentenced to prison at Frontera, a women's correctional institution located in Chino, California. You know what I was just thinking as I was reading this, you guys? Because I really hate how the music is... I have to fucking switch it in this stupid thing. I'm going to start doing every live show only on Twitch. So if you want to see these shows live, you have to go over to Twitch because it's just going to be a better experience. And then I'm going to take the recording of that show and upload it to YouTube. I know, crazy. But that's what I'm going to do. So if you want to watch this live from now on, subscribe to the Twitch down below. That's not a gimmick. I just wanted to do a better show for you guys because I think only having 7 songs to choose from to play while we're reading the fucking craziness that is Bob Lazar's life and Hell's Angel, his little Hell's Angel, his little demon cat angel. Pat, you can get Twitch. It's free. Just download the app. The link is in the description below. It's super easy. You don't have to pay for it. It's totally free. You just have to do the email thing. Sign up for an account. That's it. I'll still be here live in the chats with you guys. Stuff like that. But I just think the show would be better. The show's going to be better. Than what it is here. You know what I mean? I can't, and the thing is I can't, it just sucks. Look at that, Vargas BZ is now following. Thank you so much for the follow on the Twitch side. Yeah, it's just going to be a better show for you guys, I promise you. I know it's a pain in the ass. I know it's a pain in the ass. And I won't make the switch immediately. How about this? I'll give you guys a week. I'm going to just tell people for a week that we're going to be switching all the live shows to Twitch. So that way everybody has a fair enough chance. That's more fair. That was crazy what I just said. I can't do that just tonight. Fucking make the switch. Whoa there, cowboy. I got you guys, all right? I'll give it a week. And I'll warn everybody at the top and the end of every show. So that way... Oh, this show's incredibly unprofessional, and the host obviously has trouble reading and makes numerous grammatical pronunciation errors. Plus, the background music is whack. Oh, yay! Spong iForm XL. Except the guy who wrote it, published this, said this. Appreciate the podcast. You've picked up on some of the nuances of the interviews that many pass over. And to be quite honest, it's a little difficult to read because it's not written in a grammatical way. It's written as if the person was talking. It's a recording. It's just a transcript of it. So you have to pick up the cadences of how these people talk. I have no idea where they're from. So pardon me if I say your fucking comment sucks. What do you think of that? And I've got a microphone and you don't. So there. My assessment based on speaking to the family is that it is unlikely he wasn't aware of the conviction. They all speak of their criminal history quite openly, and he and she would have been on probation. That makes sense. How do you marry somebody and not know that they're a Hell's Angel that murdered somebody? And it also makes sense that his boss that gave him static is the guy they killed, or that she killed, or that I'm sure she has her justification, or had her justification for killing that guy. And it was probably in her mind an injustice that she got arrested for it. Probably talk shit about Dennis Pisario all the time. And so that's probably, it's easy to make the conclusion or jump to conclusions, make jumps in this story. Well, maybe that's how he got the name Dennis, because that was a thorn in the side of his wife. It makes sense, man. Pathetic. Whew. I thought you were saying I was pathetic there for a second. I had to go and look at this comment, Lex. I was like, okay, you're on my side here. Sorry. Sometimes I get a little defensive, you know, when you get comments like this. And she knocked him off. She poisoned him with some Element 115 in his tea. Dude, this is just shady shit, man. Shady shit. So March 12, 1975, Carol was sentenced to prison at Frontera Women's Correctional Institution located in Chino, California. The length of Carol's sentence was not reported. At the time, the minimum sentence for second-degree murder in California was set at 5 years. Gary Burkett, who also pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, received an intermediate I can't read that word. Okay, I've got dyslexia, guys. Prison sentence ranging from 5 to 15 years with an additional enhancement. How much of the likely 5-year sentence Carol actually served remains uncertain. Per California law, she would have been required to serve a minimum of 2/3 of her sentence before becoming eligible for release. Based on this requirement and accounting for time served, the earliest date for her potential release would have been November 1977. Perfect timing. Carol's life was shaped by a variety of challenges, including early exposure to drugs and crime, a lifelong addiction to amphetamines, and several pregnancies, all of which she put up for adoption. 3 of her family members were interviewed about her life and her marriage to Bob Lazar. Susan Hack, one of Carol's adopted out daughters, Dawn Lenahan, Carol's cousin, and Renee Wakefield, another cousin. Susan Hack, who provided that picture earlier. Interview with Susan Hack, Carol's second adopted out child. Oh, man. Walk me through the process of finding Carol. So I went in search of my natural mother when I was 38, which was about 32 years ago. So 1992-ish is when I started and hired an adoption search group, and they couldn't come up with all the information. They could only come up with the fact that she was deceased, but they did have her mother's phone number. So I called her mother, and after I explained who I was, the phone call was very unpleasant, and that was the end of it. But not too long after that, Carol's cousin, Donald Lenahan, called me and said that he had gotten the information from Carol's mother, and he was very nice, and we talked at length. He kept telling me that I needed to speak with Dean because Carol and Dean were supposedly very close. He also gave me a phone number to Renee Wakefield, who was Carol's cousin. So Don wouldn't give me Dean's phone number, saying he was very private, but he agreed to pass mine along. He said, "Don't expect him to call you because he's very private." Well, he called me a couple hours later, and he told me about Carol, who was, and he knew she was deceased, but he did not know how much. He said none of the family knew anything, that Bob Lazar had called some of the family or one person in the family like 3 or 4 days after she died, but didn't give any details. I really wanted to know how she died and what went on, so I dug in deeper. And eventually obtained her birth certificate and her death certificate and made contact with Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar didn't tell me much other than she had killed herself. He made mention of the fact that him and I were the same age, and he sent me a videotape of Carol and him and sent me some pictures. I left out the part about how I found Bob Lazar. I knew that Carol died in Las Vegas, and I watched a news report where a reporter from Las Vegas was talking about something. So I made note of his name. George Knapp was his name, and I found him by leaving messages at different TV stations. And he eventually called me, and when I explained to him who I was and that I was looking for Bob Lazar, he said, "Well, I knew your mother, Carol. She was a nice lady. I can't give you Bob's information because everybody's looking for him due to the UFO stuff. But he said, I'll give him your number." And Bob called me, and that was the conversation where he told me Carol had killed herself. So he did send me a lot of pictures, and I had a lot of pictures of Carol, and I still didn't feel like I had a complete story. So now I knew where I came from, and I knew her name, and I knew that she was dead and that she'd been married to this guy named Bob Lazar, who seemed pretty strange to me. So I started doing my own research on the whole thing, and I found why Bob Lazar was semi-famous. I think we had 1 or 2 conversations after that. He was surprised that I came looking because he didn't think Carol had any kids. She told him she didn't have any kids. She told him that she didn't have any kids. I started looking for siblings before Ancestry came along, but my resources were limited. Eventually, Ancestry came along, and at that point, I found 4 other siblings, and I also found out that Carol had 6 kids, and all between 1959 and 1968. Fuck, dude. She was a scumbag. She's not a good lady. And this is Bob Lazar's wife. She was 16 years older than him. It's insane. Walk me through how you learned about Carol's background. So I learned about Carol's life. I actually had a great picture painted to me by her cousin, Dean. Dean and Carol were very close, and Dean knew her whole life story. And so a couple of phone calls with Dean, and he invited me to his house in North Carolina where we looked at pictures. Dean and I ended up being very close, and I was thankful for that because it was my only connection to where I came from. And after a couple of conversations, or maybe after a meeting in person, he shared a lot of things with me. And he shared that Carol had gone to prison. And I thought it was for accessory to murder, but I might be mistaken. Apparently, she went in the home with the person that pulled the trigger. She did not pull the trigger, but she went in the home with the person. So she was charged with it. Carol had one older brother named Jimmy, and Carol, Jimmy, and Dean all ran around together. Dean was part of the motorcycle gang and rather notorious one, and so Carol had many boyfriends that were friends of Dean's. Her brother Jimmy tried to integrate himself, but he was kind of not allowed into things. He was seen as somebody that just couldn't run with them. But Carol and Dean ran around together through their teenage years up until she married Bob Lazar. Dean didn't know anything about Carol past Bob Lazar, except for one time she came to visit with Bob Lazar. Dean recollected that the visit was strange, but Carol, according to what Dean told me, was pregnant many times. She used drugs through most of her pregnancies. I was the second child she gave up for adoption. Dean couldn't remember exactly who my father was because Carol had quite a few boyfriends, but she seemed to me from the pictures Dean painted, as a happy, pretty-go-lucky person without any responsibilities. As I learned more about her, and as Dean came clean about more things, I realized that she had a rather sad childhood. Not a lot of parental guidance, and because of the way her mother was, I felt that's the reason she turned out the way she was. Not motherly material, and not somebody that wanted to be bound by responsibility. Some more water. And Renee told me that when she was younger, all the women, the parents, as in Carol's mother, her name was Verda. They called her Scotty, and there was 3 other sisters that all of them used Bezendrine pills. Bezendrine. That's what doctors prescribed, was Bezendrine pills. They called them mini whites in those days. That's all the older generation women used them. So she wasn't surprised when Carol started using them. From the things that I learned, I would say Carol's drug history started before 1959 because I was born in 1959. And from what my own walk of life, I feel like I was probably born addicted to amphetamine. But what my mother, from what my adopted mother tells me about my temperamental, about how I was as a baby, I eventually knowing things about my substance abuse, I felt like I had probably been born addicted. Damn, dude, that's fucking crazy. And then learning from Dean and Renee about the rampant methamphetamine use confirmed to me. So I think she started using it before 1959, and I think that she probably used methamphetamine, which is really the same thing as Bezendrine. Bezendrine is something that doctors prescribed as a pill. That's mini whites, but somewhere along the line, some backyard chemists learned to make this stuff, and that's what they called crank. Now, the motorcycle group that I was speaking of is notorious for using crank. They control the crank in the San Fernando Valley, Los Angeles, where I was from. In Oakland, where the motorcycle gang originated, it's a big thing amongst that group. And from the people that I talked to, and at one point, I also talked to the ex-wife of Jimmy Asher. I can't remember her name, but she told me that they were all addicted to crank. And that one time she went with Jimmy over to Carol's house. Carol lived with a biker, and Jimmy and his wife scored some crank from them. She recollected that Carol answered the door in her underwear with a blanket sort of wrapped around herself. Let them in, gave them powdered substance in a baggie, and they left. She recollected that Carol was mean and no niceties were exchanged. She just basically let them in, grumbled a little bit, and handed them something, the baggie. So going back to, I believe she started before 1959. I don't know if that carried on when she was with Bob Lazar or not. I know that it carried on through her closeness with Dean. But once again, Dean and Carol kind of went their separate ways when she married Bob Lazar. Did Dean tell you anything about his recollections of Bob? Yes. Dean said that when Carol showed up with Bob, he was surprised because Bob was not Carol's usual type. He had already told me that she hung around with and had friends and boyfriends that were bikers. And he said that when she showed up with Bob Lazar, he was surprised. And I believe Bob Lazar was sort of the butt of the family jokes because he was thought of as a geek. Did he have any specific memories about meeting Bob or any experiences with Bob that he thought were notable, or did he share any? He just said that he felt the guy overstepped, that he felt he was asked too many questions and was too inquisitive. He said that he was uncomfortable with him. Can you talk a little bit more about or walk me through your conversation with George Knapp and trying to find Bob, as in as much detail as possible, your conversations with Bob and your efforts to learn from him? Yes, the first time that I talked to George, like I said, I left a message at either I left a message at either I knew that what station he was at, or I just left a message with a few. Maybe I inquired if they knew him and left a message, and he did call me back, and he was very nice. And when I told him who I was, Carol Nadine Asher's daughter, that was adopted out, and that I was trying to find Bob Lazar, and he said, "Well, good luck. Everybody's trying to find Bob Lazar." And I said, "Well, but you know him, right?" I'm not sure how I knew he knew him, but I knew that he did. And he said, "Yeah, I know him. He's a friend of mine, and I can take a message and pass it to him, and maybe he'll call you." Man, dude, it's wild how George protected just anybody talking to this guy, including kids from his dead wife's past. And he said, "By the way, I knew your mother. She was a nice lady." Hey, wait a second. Didn't I already read this part? What's going on? No, I didn't read this part. That's interesting. I guess she repeated it twice. So Bob Lazar did call me back rather quickly. I found him to be talkative and almost jovial. He said at one point, once he knew the date I was born, he said, "Oh, isn't that funny? I was born the same date as you, and technically I'm your stepfather." Ha 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 ha. I thought it was weird that he was making light of this, and I wanted details. And he didn't give me any details other than to say that he was asphyxiated with her. Other than to say that she was asphyxiated, that she asphyxiated herself in the race car that he had built her. Oh my God! What did he talk about? He did talk about the race car. He talked about them racing cars. I think it was, I don't know exactly where it was, maybe Utah somewhere, where they would race cars, and that he got some notoriety from the car that he built. He built it to run on jet fuel so that it could go very fast, and the police were always harassing him. So they would go somewhere out in the desert to race the car. He said Carol had wanted the car, and because he had knowledge of how to build it, he had turned her old Honda into a race car. So he shared that with me. He said that he had the video of her and some pictures. He also said that he had some print books that she liked, Salvador Dali, and had art books by him. And so he offered to send those things to me, and I was very receptive to that. And I gave him my address, and we ended the phone call. I did get the things in the mail. I got a videotape that I later converted to disc, and I got quite a few pictures from him. One of the race car with Carol behind it. I had more questions after we hung up weeks or months later, because he was the last person that contacted with my mom, and I just didn't feel like I knew everything. So I called him back and wasn't able to reach him. So I called George Knapp back, and George Knapp said, "I have nothing more to talk about with you, and I'll give Bob a message." And Bob never called. George Knapp, I should add here, George Knapp seemed a lot different in this conversation than he had in the initial. In the initial conversation, he was more welcoming. In the second conversation, he seemed very guarded. Did you ever get any information or get any sense of how long Carol had been in prison for? I can't remember if I got a definitive answer on that. I knew that it had been years, but I didn't know if it was 2 or 3, 7 or 8. No, I don't know the amount of time. If I did learn it, it doesn't come to mind now. Could you tell me your understanding of Carol's use of the last name Eslinger and the last name Strong? I knew the last name Strong because of my own research. Carol's mother, Verda, was married to a Strong, Robert Strong. So that was my first, okay, maybe she was going to buy that name for whatever reason. She was close to her stepfather, whatever. But as Marianne and I moved closer, I asked her about the last name Eslinger and why Carol was going by the last name Strong. And she said both Freddie and Carol used aliases, and she wasn't sure why. She just knew that they used aliases, and she said Eslinger was actually her sister's husband's last name. So one of Freddie's aunts was Eslinger, and he chose to use that name. I think I'm going to cut it here, you guys, just because my voice is going out. My voice is going out. But this is insane. Like, she kills herself in the jet car that she built him. And he makes light of it and is giving stepdad jokes. What a weird dude, man. What a weird dude. And it's interesting to see how quickly George Knapp changed. Man, the second people start sniffing around this shit is when they stop talking to you. And so what I recommend and what I'm going to do next year, I'm going to Alien Con. I'm going to ask some questions too. Even if I only get one, and if I got to pay to get in there, I'll do it. Maybe I'll pull a Bob Lazar and just forge some Alien Con passes. Unreal, man. It's unreal. It's unreal. The only way that we can hold their feet to the fire is literally we have to go to where they're at. And the part that sucks about that is that your money is basically going in their pocket for you to ask a question that they'll never answer, or they'll never be asked to answer anywhere else outside of this forum, and be sort of put on the spot as opposed to, just ignoring you on Twitter. Not that they're obligated to answer every question, right? Like, that would be impossible. But when the questions are coming from legitimate journalists, or the question is being asked over and over and over and over again because it's a legitimate question, it seems like the only way to do it is to get in front of them. And I'll be honest with you guys, like, I really do believe that the best thing that we could do is call members of Congress and tell them to put Bob Lazar in front of Congress and make him answer questions under oath about his time at Area 51. Let's see what he says. I'd also like to put Jeremy Corbell on the Hill. And I want senators to know who his sources are. Who's leaking all of this information to Jeremy Corbett, this terrible information? I mean, it's no wonder why none of this shit is classified. It's always unclassified shit that Jeremy Corbell is releasing. It's never classified leaks because, of course, he wouldn't have those, right? But then again, if it was real alien tech or something really strange, you think the video would be classified. But no, that makes sense. That makes sense. People need to put themselves on the spot and record, like Stephen Greenstreet. Their advance was shameful. It really was. Their avoidance was shameful. I agree. The person who will eventually establish the scientifically undeniable existence of intelligent life within our universe will form a new chapter of human history. He or she will be human and with faults. I could agree with that. But I honestly, at this point, I don't think it will be a person who will establish anything scientifically. I think if it's going to be known, they will make it known if they are even there. I don't think this is up to anyone. I don't think Avi Loeb's going to get it on one of his cameras And even if Avi Loeb did get it on one of his cameras, it's going to be murder board. It better be a triangulated photo. It better have different angles, and it better be fucking clear. Because I think if I just don't think he's going to get anything personally. The more I think about it, and the thing is also like, you know, and Steven Spielberg said this. I love how everybody's sharing the Steven Spielberg quotes as him, you know, some big deal. He basically said in that interview, you know, I've walked back on thinking that they're here because in the 70s, not everyone had a camera, and they were everywhere. And now everyone has a camera and they're nowhere to be found. No one's taking pictures like they were back in the day. Why is that? Why is that? There's a good reason, I think, and it's a pretty simple explanation. And it doesn't need to be in a different galaxy for it to happen. Yeah, Bob Lazar needs to go in front of Congress. I'm with you, man. I think the hashtag that I put out here, Lazar to Congress, let's make it a thing. Hashtag Lazar to Congress. Let's see. I'm going to put it right here for you guys. No, not that one. Yeah, this one. Hold on. Hashtag Lazar to Congress. Make it trend. Make it so. But tag it in everything you do. Tag it in everything you do. Ask Senator Gillibrand to call Bob Lazar to Congress. Ask fucking Marco Rubio to call Bob Lazar to Congress. If what he's saying is so important and so real, the truth must be told, right? I'm sure Jeremy Corbell will get behind this hashtag, Lazar to Congress. Right, Jeremy? Right, George? Hashtag Lazar to Congress. Let's get Bob testifying. Let's get the truth out there, right? Let's hear about Element 115. Let's talk about the aliens that he saw and the craft that he touched and entered. Let's put it out on under oath in front of Congress. And somebody had mentioned that Bill Clinton went in front of Congress and lied under oath. Bill Clinton was the president of the United fucking States. Bill Clinton's a little more powerful than Bob Lazar. So, yeah. There's going to be two different sets of laws for those two very different types of people. And I don't have time to explain that hierarchy to you, but that is very real. And if Bob Lazar went to Congress and told the exact same story that he's been telling for the last 30 years and it hasn't changed one bit, right? And according to Joe Rogan and according to Sagar and Jetty, it's fact. According to Jeremy Corbell, these are facts that Bob Lazar is spouting. So let's get it under oath. Let's put it in front of Congress. Let's let the American people decide. And let's let Congress check out your claims to see if there's any validity to them, to see if there are secret programs being hidden away from congressional lawmakers. Because if you're right, Bob, wow, change the world, right? It's going to change the world if Bob Lazar is right. So hashtag Lazar to Congress. It's really simple. Really, really simple. We didn't want to give him more perceived congressional credibility. I'm barely 40 and have endless memories of people verifiably lying to Congress without consequences. Yeah, but I think there are a lot more. I think Bob Lazar makes Congress embarrasses Congress. I think that's where I'm going with this. I think if Bob Lazar goes to Congress and lies, I think Bob Lazar goes to jail. I think that would be the end of the line for Bob Lazar. I don't think he gets away with it. Bob Lazar is not Oliver North. Bob Lazar is not Dick Cheney. Bob Lazar is not fucking Bill Clinton. He's just some asshole selling glow-in-the-dark ooze and fucking movie posters and stolen rocket bicycle designs. And he claims that he has a piece of element 115. If he has that, Congress should be able to provide him a safe opportunity to be a whistleblower, right? I mean, why not? Let's give it a shot. Lazar to Congress, man. Lazar to Congress. I think I just want to see Bob Lazar lie in Congress, and I think the Department of Defense wouldn't take that lightly. Just my guess, especially with all the egg that has been put on their faces in the last 6 years because of this story. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to these folks. Anyway, that's the show, guys. Lazar to Congress. Make it a thing. I love you all. Remember, we're going to be switching these live shows to the Twitch channel only. And we're going to be playing the reruns on YouTube just because the production of the show is going to go up infinitely doing it that way. So if you want to subscribe to the Twitch channel and watch the show live, check out the Twitch link below. Unless there's a way I can figure out to run OBS on both Twitch and YouTube, which I'm pretty sure you can't do. That's the way we're going to do it. That's the way it's going to go. Let's see here. Steve Long says, I hear you, Lou. I want him to be accountable too, but they won't spend years in prosecuting him and money prosecuting him for fibbing about his government job. They won't even bother to hear him because that's not what UAP focuses on. I think there is people in Congress that are looking at this conversation that are really pissed off to see how far it's gotten and to see that. I mean, Avril Haines just today in Kirsten Gillibrand, I saw that the Aero office has been funded. It's got money. It's been staffed. There's a lot of people angry that this has gotten as far as it's gotten, and not because they're genuinely looking for aliens, but because it's making the Air Force look stupid in a lot of ways, other than just the alien conversation. And I don't think they like that. And I think if Bob Lazar came in Congress and lied, and that could either convince more Congress people or sequestered more dollars or embarrass the Air Force even more, because then they would have to get somebody to come and comment to these claims. It would just be, I don't think Bob Lazar would even fight. I think he would immediately fold and say, sorry, I was lying, if the government did threaten to sue him. And I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. On this one. But either way, I still want to see Lazar to Congress. Either way, I just want to hear Corbell say it, because at its most basic, it's right. Like, if Bob Lazar is telling the truth, he should testify in front of Congress. And you've got I mean, just at the most basic level. At the most basic, he should go to Congress. And anyone who touts his story as real and proof and factual should also get behind this hashtag. Lazar to Congress. I mean, they really should. It's if they're so confident, It should be real easy for Jeremy Corbell to hashtag that. Should be real easy for George Knapp to hashtag that. Anyway, you guys, have a killer night. I'm sure I'll be talking about some other stuff soon. A lot more of these. And there'll be random times. So make sure you ring the bell. Again, make sure you subscribe to the Twitch channel because we'll be doing these live a lot more. Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight. I did see... Did I call this out? I did. Okay, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate it. Want to say thank you again to Pat DeRusso, who became a monthly member to the channel. So appreciate that, you guys. Don't forget, check out our reviews, check out our game streams, check out all the stuff we're doing here other than UFOs. It's all fun. It's all good stuff. Anyway, you guys, that's it. I've been up since 5:15. I've been working since 5:45 this morning. I'm tired. It's time to get some rest. It's time to eat some dinner. And it's time to take a break. Until tomorrow, you guys. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Thursday. No show tomorrow. Maybe do a stream in midday, game stream. So if you want to come hang out with us, play some Call of Duty, might do a game stream tomorrow, midday. And then Friday, I think we're doing a game stream with Rather. Me and Rather going to be doing a game stream. So come hang out Friday. Maybe we'll also talk some UFOs on Friday. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see what bullshit pops up. But in the meantime, don't trust anything that comes out of Bob Lazar's mouth. Don't trust anything that comes out of George Knapp's mouth. Don't trust anything that comes out of Jeremy Corbell's mouth or really anybody else that pushes any of this other bullshit. Don't trust anybody. Don't trust me. Trust yourself. Do your own fucking research, man. Have a good night. I love you. Please do. My Twitter handle link is in the link tree below. Click on that. Definitely send me that information. I'd love to do that. Make my life a hell of a lot easier and the stream better for you guys. Love you all. Have a great